Good afternoon. Today is the 21st of March and it's time for yet another very vague, probably quite boring and not very interesting vlog. We're going to do something of a departure today because I've had inspiration as to what topic to talk about from a very unlikely source, which we will cover a bit later. But the topic of today's incredibly vague vlog is: how much does London influence the rest of the country? The very unlikely source that has influenced what I'm going to be saying today is Nathan Barley, which was a comedy series on Channel 4 in early 2005. It only lasted for 6 episodes, and it was something that my lady wife and I didn't know her at the time or anything like that, but both really very much appreciate. It's quite a difficult series to watch because it's astonishingly embarrassing for the people who were involved in the situations that they're in. I'm what's called a highly sensitive person. That's actually a sort of psychological term to somebody who has certain kind of attributes in the way that they think. And one of the things I very much get affected by is people being in embarrassing situations in television and film programs. So for me, The Office is very, very, very difficult to watch because the characters get into some incredibly embarrassing situations, and it's far too much for somebody like me. But I have managed to watch Nathan Barley. It's very difficult because it's also incredibly embarrassing, even probably more so than The Office. But it's just very, very well made, and it's really, really funny. The whole plot of Nathan Barley is surprisingly kind of modern, considering it was made 18 years ago. The main character is played by Nicholas Burns, and he is basically a total, utter idiot. We would now call him a social media influencer, but that term didn't exist at the time. This is a time when YouTube had just literally launched, or was about to launch, where Facebook was really very tiny. And so we weren't in the same world as we are today, and yet he calls himself a self-facilitating media node, and he does things like pull pranks on people and film them. He takes photographs of himself and sort of photoshops himself into pre-existing photographs of models and things like that. He stands on street corners around the world and takes photographs of that. He posts his website where it was touted, which is called trashbat.co.ck, registered with Cook Islands. That site was the the main site for people to find out about Nathan Barley back in the day. And he goes around just basically being a bit of an idiot. He wears 2 Bluetooth headsets. He has this phone called the Wasp T12 speech tool. And I remember one of the lines in the show is that it's been out in Japan for 2 weeks, where's yours? And it's this stupid thing with a massive, massive number 5, because that's apparently the most common number. It's bright yellow, it has a projector in it. It's just really, really stupid. This is a time when, all the best phones came from Japan, and later in 2005 I got a job as a mobile phone salesman at Phones For You, a long dead company now, and the best phones were made in Japan. There's sort of things like Sharp 903 and stuff like that were the ones people wanted. And so this is a show that really now, and I've watched bits of it, it appeals to somebody of my generation massively. It was written by 2 kind of massively influential comedy writers who most of you would have heard of. There's Charlie Brooker from Screen Wipe, News Wipe. Website TV Go Home was the first appearance of a Nathan Barley character, I think in the late 90s to early 2000s. Chris Morris actually appears in something like the IT Crowd, He plays a character called Denham Random, I think his character is. And he was in Brass Eye. I think that's something he's most known for. A very controversial show, which had a few years before Nathan Barley. So yeah, Charlie Brooker's screenwrite, newswipe. The video to screenwrite was a piece of music called AM 180, I think it's called, by Grandaddy, and it's an amazing piece of music. It's so appropriate for the series. I think that was made just after Nathan Barley, about 2006 when it started. Of course, Newswipe, and then Black Mirror, which he's probably most famous for today. Nicholas Burns, who plays Nathan Barley, is not someone I'm very familiar with, but he just embodies the character just perfectly. The two sort of point of reference characters in Nathan Barley, which is set in Hoxton and Shoreditch in East London, are Dan Ashcroft, I think, who's supposed to be a bit like Charlie Brooker, but also a bit like Richard Ashcroft, funny enough, because the music video for Bittersweet Symphony was filmed not too far away from actually where most of Nathan Barley takes place, in that part of East London, just on the eastern edge of the city. And then he also has a sister called Claire. I can't remember the surname of the actress who plays Claire, but she's got the same surname in the show, which makes things a bit easier. So Nathan Barley, the idiot, he does worry though himself that he might not be possibly the kind of sort of social media force, let's just sort of use that word, because it's very easy to explain to that in a modern context that he thinks he is. So his inspiration is a magazine called Sugar Ape that is, I think, a parody of possibly Vice magazine and some others that are around. I don't really know that sort of stuff myself. Where Dan Ashcroft works, he's played by Julian Barrett from The Mighty Boosh, and he gets himself into all sorts of really awkward situations where people kind of just don't treat him very seriously, and things get really embarrassing for him, and he gets really sort of disillusioned working at Sugar Ape. The sub-editor is called Jonathan, with a question mark in the end of his name. There's also another character called Ned, who's played by Richard Diodade. I don't remember how to say that, but obviously you'll know him from all sorts of things, including a very entertaining series which ran at the same time as Nathan Barley, called Garth Marenghi's Dark Place, which, I can talk about Garth Marenghi's Dark Place for ages, but it's hilariously funny. And some of the same people in Garth Marenghi's Dark Place are also in Nathan Barley. Nathan Barley's housemate is a chap called Jones, who's played by Noel Fielding. So you've got Julian Barrett and Noel Fielding in it as well. It's written by Chris Morris and Charlie Brooker. And you've got Julian Barrett, Noel Fielding as two of the sort of main characters in it. So it's got sort of what I would deem as sort of comedy royalty in it. And the idea is that, people like Jonathan, who's the assistant editor of Sugar Ape, have kind of been trying to tell Dan Ashcroft what to do, and he just doesn't want to do it. He wants to be a serious journalist. His sister turns up, she's like a sort of documentary filmmaker, and she wants just to make her name for herself, sort of highlighting things like urban poverty and things like that, and she tries hard to find a job, and she goes to London to get someone to stay, and she ends up staying with Nathan Barley and his flatmate Jones, who just keeps playing music really loudly all night so she can't sleep. They find out that basically the place is full of these sort of hipsters who think that puerile things and just stupid ideas are really cool. So he writes this article called "The Rise of the Idiots" for Sugar Ape magazine. But the problem is that the people who are on the editorial staff of Sugar Ape are such nincompoops. They think that he's kind of written it ironically, and that he's one of them. It's all ironic, and he's some kind of sort of messiah for their generation about what's going on. It's it's very, very funny. It probably doesn't sound that interesting. The thing is that these days there are loads of these people out there who are making stupid prank videos, who are kind of desperate to get themselves kind of known, and just come across as a bit silly. So there's loads of people like that because of the social media we have. And things that happened in East London sort of back in the time, they're everywhere. The people, you know, drinking all these funny drinks they now have, and, you know, living in an urban area and sort of, you know, feeling they have to buy organic bread and stuff like that. And there's nothing wrong with organic bread and nothing wrong with that kind of stuff. It's just interesting to see the sort of influence on it, where it would have seemed unusual then. It's not unusual now. And the reason I think that Nathan Barley has not been continued is because Charlie Brooker said in an interview, I think about 6 years ago, that we can't really do it again because it's sort of already happened. There's tons of people out there now just like Nathan Barley with trashback.co.uk. That's just what's happened. So they sort of predicted the future. And so a few years later, of course, the mayoral election in London's happened, and we ended up with Sadiq. I wasn't able to vote in it because I lived in Surrey at the time, and despite the fact that I lived less than 2 miles from the Greater London boundary, if you're outside of the border, you don't get a say on what happens in London at all in terms of the mayor. And so Sadiq was elected. I wasn't particularly happy about that, really. And you know, within a year, he'd come up with the ultra-low emission zone to sort of try to get rid of you know, these harmful levels of pollution apparently that sort of were around and things like that, and, you know, we had to sort of bring London to line. And, you know, taking public transport is often a really, really good thing. Later this week I'm going to the NEC Practical Excellence Restoration Show, and I'll be taking public transport to get there and back every day. The public transport is a really great thing if it works properly. The West Midlands has got a very good public transport system. London fundamentally has got quite a good one. So, you know, if you can cut down on car use for that sort of journey, then that's a good thing. But, you know, back in 2017 when it was announced, my mother and I got rid of our cars that were powered by the wrong engine, because we just sort of knew that this was coming, and we knew that it was going to be a really big problem if I was doing jobs in and around there. And of course, back in those days I was still living right on the Greater London boundary, and in 2023 now, this has been on the cards for some time, and so many people are talking about this. I don't know why it's taken so long to talk about this. It was kind of really probably going to happen anyway at some point. The ultra emission zone in London is being extended to right on the boundary. So if I was still living in Epsom, which I'm not now, I would have had to sell the car anyway, because it was £12.50 a day to take my 2014 Chevy Cruze with the wrong engine in it into central London. It's insane. That car cost, I think, £30 a tax. The emissions were really low on it. It used to do very good. Very, very good fuel economy, and yet this 2003 Rover 45 V6 I'm driving is compliant with the ultra-low emission zone, and that Chevy Cruze wasn't. It was sort of 1 year too old, because cars with those heavy oil engines, it's a, you know, 65 plate or newer. One was a 14, and so I understand the frustration of all these people. I understand why people like, you know, Mr. Hunt from Jeff Price Cars and Shazad from the Brown Car Guy, you know, are getting really, really sort of militant about this stuff, because it affects so many people, and it's just happening everywhere. It's happening in Portsmouth, which is the closest clean air zone to us. Birmingham, I've been talking about recently. Bath, Bristol, Sheffield has just got one in the last month. Some of them are for taxis only at the moment, but I mean, who's to say that those will not change really soon to affect us all? It just kind of seems that, you know, Nathan Barley predicted the future in terms of what it was going to be like in loads of places, not just, you know, in East London. And the ultra-low emission zone that was announced in 2017 is happening all over the place. I think this is why so many people are sort of upset about it, and, you know, I'm not a fan of it either. There's a reason why, you know, we don't we don't talk about diesels on this channel is because I was affected by it before I even started my channel. That's why. People keep asking me this question about it, and it's a really simple answer. I don't know why you don't understand. It's just it's his sort of influence and silliness and all this sort of stuff. Anyway, that's quite enough about that. Thank you ever so much indeed once again for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like this video, leave a comment below, and we shall see you again soon for more surprisingly cutting edge rambling.